There is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment. And here, we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. And I've been looking forward to this show for quite some time. And I know, Michelle, so have you. How are you today, by the way, my dear?
I'm doing so much. We learn so much every single day, Kevin. Just when we think we understand things, there's always another side to deepen that broadened view. But do you want to introduce our guest since you've been so excited?
I love. First of all, she's a world traveler. She's had a near-death experience. She's had experiences that have taught her what she is supposed to be doing in life. And she is leading the life of her dreams and how she wants and how the universe has kind of decided that she's going to be part of the healing process for, dare I say, humanity. And I really love the mission that she's on. And her name is Cheryl, and she's a spiritual coach and healer. She works with chakras. She's got a couple of books out, and she is a very gifted spiritual and physical healer or energetic healer. Would that be, have I misstated anything so far?
That's quite the intro. Thank you ever so much, Kevin.
Well, you are one of the people that are destined to help change the world. And that is, and you say that with complete relaxation and not, oh no, I'm not going to, what kind of an impact that you can have. You've been told what kind of an impact that you can have, haven't you?
To an extent, yes. And you know, keep finding out. One day is never the same, right?
There isn't, there are some people that say, oh, I don't know about tomorrow. I'm scared of tomorrow and I don't know. And it's like every day is a grand adventure. You get to find out more things each day than you have a right to know. And it's just wonderful. And I just appreciate having you here so much. So tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to this place that you're at today.
You know, I was born as a soul in a little baby body, just like everybody else. And I signed up for those parents who were not perfect. And I signed up for my life in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And grew up, I just had my 64th birthday. So, Brichelle, I don't think you know what that's like, but Kevin, I think you're closer to maybe understanding, probably a little younger than me, maybe. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But back in those days, it wasn't like today. And most children suffered the most common trauma in the world, and that is not having an emotional resource there for you. You learn to hold your emotions in. It wasn't okay to share. Boys were told to not cry. It's just it was a thing. And that is now classified as trauma. It's the ongoing trauma of not having an emotional resource. And because they didn't know what it was like either. They had the same trauma. And I grew up and I married an alcoholic, covert narcissist who I didn't know. And narcissist, I don't even think that word existed back then.
Nope, it didn't.
Nobody knew, but he proved to have definitely pretty strong issues with alcoholism and was quite emotionally abusive. So I left him with 2 kids. I was a single mom, and it was like, whoa, all right. I kept feeling relief every day when I would wake up after I left him. Then I would kind of think, but what else? And I remember soon after leaving him, one day at an intersection, I'm in my van, no kids in my minivan with me, and I just suddenly felt so grateful to God. Now, I was raised Catholic, but I hadn't been to church. I couldn't remember how long. And I suddenly started crying. I was just so grateful to be alive and to have the life I had. And I learned later from a Sufi organization what step of realization that was, that it was a moment in time. It's step 4. I won't get into all that, but it's a big heart opening. And then your life changes after that. So I had that. And then soon after that, I was on a beach one day, and my deceased brother, younger brother, who had taken his life not long before that, I was on the beach with my friend, his spirit came to visit me. And I felt him suddenly like this white ball of light. I'm laying on the beach. My friend is doing kinesiology on me. And all of a sudden, I just felt this tremendous love. And there was this, I could see through my closed eyes, this big ball of white light. And I somehow knew it was him. I'd never, spirituality was not a word, just like narcissist was not. It was meditation. What are you nuts? It was not. And so then finally my friend, she was doing all this finger testing, and then she says, it's your brother. And then she said, oh my God, he's here. And I said, I know. So then to be validated by her, and she channeled him. And his message to me was to start meditating. Little did I know it would take me on this journey. 32 years later, here I am on this podcast with you guys. So I was a very unique person at that time, meditating. Nobody I knew meditated, not one person. It was, and that opened me up to start healing myself, my past, and growing. And people just started asking me to help them. And it kind of took off.
Well, if you remember that long ago and being raised Catholic, they at that time were actually meditation, that's of the devil. Don't do that. Mindfulness and spirituality and talking to dead people, they can't talk to you. There was a different time. And thank goodness that we have evolved past that, because when I first started the radio show in 2003, meditation wasn't a thing. Neither was yoga, neither was acupuncture, neither was any of these things. Massage was barely a thing. Reiki was not a thing yet. None of that of the arts that you are so familiar with now were available to a lot of people. And even like you were saying, your parents, my parents were the same way. They did not know how to love. They didn't know what love was because they hadn't experienced it, not from when they were kids. So we are in a really unique and wonderful time, don't you think?
Oh, yes. Oh, are we? Especially with everything that's going on in the world, as hard as it may seem, as angry as it may make some people, or fearful, we are in the midst of a huge growth curve. That's how I look at it. We are evolving faster than humanity ever has. And it's forcing all of us who want to grow and seriously evolve. It's forcing us to ramp up our practices, to put stronger intention. It's like just opening us up. It's time.
Well, when you broke through and had this, Cheryl, when you had this realization of just loving life and realizing there was what was the normal to be impossible, you found and felt that it was possible. Well, what was that like? Like the next while of life after that, was it like super kind of calm and still and just more of spongy, just absorbing learning? Or was it like everything had just kind of hit you and then you are moving and processing through all these things and then you had another breakthrough type of thing? Like, what was that like?
Oh, that's a killer question, Brichelle. Nobody has asked me that. That is a good one. It's so good because it's making me go back and remember. And this is what it was like. It was progressive. So it was like I could feel the gratitude without knowing what my
Yeah.
life was going to look like, because I was living below the poverty line. I would have made more on welfare, and I knew I had to get a different job. But yet somehow I just had this belief. I started to have this belief because my deceased brother's spirit was talking to me, and my father completely denied it. Nope, she made that up. And he told all my brothers, don't believe her, she made that up. But my mother was very curious. But anyway, so it was it just started to open doors. So it was like soon after that, I started learning shamanism. I started learning it along with my sister-in-law, who would come to Victoria to visit, and started practicing that. And then I found out about the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. And so shamanism became my thing for about a decade. And I went to a lot of trainings. Any extra cash or even just putting it on my credit card, I was going. And so I did a lot of, so I felt the shamanism was separate than the meditation. And I was especially excited to learn shamanic healing. And it was through both practices that I was doing simultaneously, pretty much daily, that I started to have major breakthroughs, like really deep healing. And I didn't know what the key was. I did not know what my secret sauce was. I didn't get it until years later, and I kept going with it. Years later, I joined a spiritual school, Sufi organization, and they taught the full breath, the full rhythmic breath. Well, I had been doing that, but I wasn't counting the seconds. And it was because what happens, and this is, I think, if I can just run off on this tangent right now, because this is, can I? It's
Please.
juicy. This is,
Please
you want to hear this if you're listening, and you're going to hear more, but this is so important. And that's why we see so much breath work today, right? Kevin, there was no, I mean, Brichelle, you remember when there was no breath work. So the breath, if you breathe in a long, full breath below your abdomen or below your belly button, using your abdominal muscles, you breathe slow. Let's do it right now. Put your hand on your abdomen and put your thumb at the level of your navel and relax your shoulders. Sit nice and straight and just focus all your attention there. And you exhale completely. So you squeeze your abdomen and you expel all the air, and then you inhale fully and let your belly expand. And you want to do this to 6 or 8 seconds. It changes the brain function. As soon as you start to do that, you are not doing mindfulness. You can throw mindfulness out the window as soon as you do that, because what you're doing, you're accessing what's in your subconscious, because you've changed the brain function. You are now breathing with your frontal lobal brain, and it frees up your subconscious. And that's what I was doing the whole time. I was meditating without realizing it, because I remember my first meditation class. She was telling us breathe normally. And my body kept wanting to breathe with this long breath. And the instructor always said, no, it's not how it's done. You just breathe with a regular breath. And so I asked myself one day, why did I do that? And it's because I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And I'm still uncertain whether the people that live in Wisconsin have as cold a weather as we do up in Alberta. But in the winter time, as a little kid, it's so cold all the time. And I would shiver, even though I was bundled up and everything. And I discovered that if I breathe through my nose in long breaths, I would stop shivering. That's all it meant to me. So I started to learn how to calm my sympathetic nervous system early on. So when I would start meditating and going into this stuff, my body would naturally start to do this. And it is the main ingredient in the work I do is access your subconscious, all the wounds, all the trauma, all the subconscious beliefs that's in there. And you can free it up and with the same method, empower yourself authentically.
Mm.
By the way, Cheryl, I gotta ask you, and we need to take a break. And when we come back, this is just a real quick break, everybody. But I gotta ask you, is this things that you were learning or remembering? We'll be right back. Here's another point to ponder by Positive Talk Radio. A tiny seed was buried in the dirt, covered in darkness, forgotten by the world. But within that darkness, it grew roots, then sprouted into something beautiful. The seasons of struggle you face are not endings, they're beginnings. Trust that growth is happening, even when you cannot see it. You're listening to Positive Talk Radio, where stories of hope live. Here is another point to ponder by Positive Talk Radio. A mother kept an empty chair at her table for years, waiting for her son to return from the war. The day he walked back through the door, broken but alive, that chair became a symbol of hope fulfilled. No matter how long you've been waiting, never give up on the miracle you're praying for. Hope has a way of finding its way home. You're listening to Positive Talk Radio, where stories of hope come alive. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, everybody. Brichelle is right there, and Cheryl is with us, and Cheryl is a spiritual coach and healer. And I asked her a very important question because it goes to our core, which is, I believe, and I'd love your confirmation or to deny this, I believe that before you picked your parents, before you actually even got here, you remembered so much more than you did when you were born, because we go through a forgetful period so that we can have a fresh experience to start anew. And so when you were learning these things and the breathfulness and the breath techniques and the things, you were just remembering them, weren't you?
Actually, on the break, I just tuned in. I'm like, was I remembering? And I got, well, you could say that, but it was my inner knowing, because even as the kid that was shivering, somehow I knew it was my inner knowing to breathe, to breathe. I never thought of it that way, Kevin.
See, we're doing all sorts of good things, Brichelle, aren't we? Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's I have so many things going through my mind as we're doing this, but Cheryl, I think it's so impactful specifically for me and maybe a lot of other people listening, because I just went through that breakthrough of like, there's nothing really that comes down to what matters more than gratitude. And I think that when you hit that level of awareness and understanding, you can't go back. I was just saying that on the last show, because you have no choice, but how you said your body knew, like it felt comfortable. It felt like I'd already knew how to do that. And I know that you had went through a really traumatic experience as well. Was that after you already had all these breakthroughs and were practicing all these things and doing all that, or was that what set it off?
Oh, which traumatic experience? I think you might
There have been so many.
Yeah.
you might be speaking of the near-death experience. And I just want to agree with you here around gratitude. And you know what gratitude does? It takes us into the present moment. It gives us presence. And gratitude is not forced. I tried the journal thing, and it's great for people that do that because it does raise your vibration. If you're doing that, it's awesome. But for me, when gratitude comes naturally, I allow it to expand. I allow it to expand. And and gratitude can, I'm sure, as you both know, and the audience as well, it can move us to tears. It can be deep, but it's not forced. It doesn't have to be forced. It can flow naturally. And that, no, those experiences, I went to, when did I go to Africa? 2008. 2008. No, 2008. I traveled. I had you could say this is traumatic. I had a very successful spiritual interior design business, but I was no longer feeling fulfilled. I was at a step of realization that I needed to go through, and I just didn't have the fulfillment. I hired a coach, which wasn't very common back then in 2000. I got her in 2007. And I ended up traveling to Costa Rica, and the long and the short of it, I thought I was going to move to Costa Rica, and I sold everything, and I ended up traveling instead. So I went to pretty much every country in South America, a few countries in Central America, 5 countries in Africa, came back, and then later I went to India for 4.5 months. But that trip was 20 months. And it was, on that trip, because I was in this space of the one and only dark night of the soul that people go through. And it's when you become an expert at something. I'll try and describe this as briefly as possible. You become an expert at something, and then that thing that used to give you so much joy and fulfillment no longer does. And you don't have that anymore. And it's hard to keep going with it. And you certainly can. And it's often advisable because it's an interchange that needs to happen. Whereas for me, I just had to go on a spiritual pilgrimage. So on all the chicken buses I was on, all the matatus, I'm telling you, the motorcycles, all of it, I was meditating. This was a spiritual pilgrimage to find out, what am I here for? I already had a very spiritual interior design business. I was teaching meditation on the side. I was doing healings, and I couldn't figure it out. I look back at it now like, okay, Cheryl. Anyway, so no, it was, I'm kind of, sometimes I have to say, I think I'm a bit of a slow study, because it just takes so much to get through to me. I have, so many of my clients have a lot of resistance, and I get resistance because, hello. Anyway, so I was in Uganda, and my first power animal in shamanism was gorilla. And I thought, wow, I could go to Bwindi and see the mountain gorillas. Wouldn't that be cool? So that was a big adventure in itself. Went and saw the mountain gorillas, and coming down the mountain, the RAV4 that I was in, the brakes failed. And this is a very steep road. It's like a kid's, how kids draw a mountain, just pointy, and the classic, the single lane dirt road that goes around. We start picking up speed, and the driver pulls the emergency brake, and it doesn't work. And we are going so fast at this point, and we're all very scared. And so instead of going off the, whether it was a 1,000 or 2,000 foot cliff to our death, he hit the wall to try and stop us. He hit the wall of the mountain, and the vehicle flew up in the air, landed upside down, and continued to do that rolling 4 times until we finally stopped upside down. And then we're sliding down the mountain upside down, and the vehicle is caving in even more and more, all the windows blown out. And I kept thinking, oh my God, we're going to die. We're going to die. We're going to go over that cliff. And then I just said, no, God, please save us. Please save us. And I waited, and I'll never forget the sound of the dirt and gravel in the broken glass. And we're upside down. My chin is rammed into my chest. My rear end is on top of me. And I just waited, and then the vehicle stopped. And then a bunch of people in the vehicle behind us came and started pulling us out. And we were all in very rough shape. but it was like, I knew, and I get emotional right now, I knew I was meant to live, that I had something. I don't know why this is hitting me right now. I just had a very amazing session with a woman that I'm like, so pardon me, but just this deep inner knowing of not knowing, still not knowing what it is, but knowing that I'm meant to live and I still had something to do, period.
Well, you know, Cheryl, one of the things that you did do was you went to Kenya.
Yeah.
And Samuel is in Kenya. And Samuel, you probably didn't meet him, but explain what you did in Kenya, because he is in Kiberia in the slums of Nairobi, and he's working with kids and stuff. And he's a wonderful friend of the show, and we really appreciate him. But tell us, you're the first guest that we've had since Samuel started listening to the show that says he's going, hey, look, everybody, because there are 25 people in a room listening to you right now. So
Wow.
tell the folks in Kenya what your experience of Kenya was like.
Hey, my friends in Kenya. I love you all so much. I landed in Nairobi. I was taken in a matatu to stay at this woman's house one night, and I slept in a bunk bed in her daughter's room. I was on the bottom bunk and her daughter was on the top. And the next day I went off in another matatu and I went and lived with the Maasai and Kajinano Nayo Lang. So that means my name is Nayo Lang in Ma. Yeah, so I learned to speak a bit of Ma. Sopa Oleng. And then I continued to travel. What I did there was I was there with the intention of helping to stop early forced marriage and forced genital mutilation, which is still predominant among those tribes. I remember the Kikuyu tribe was the largest in Kenya at the time. And so I ate skuma wiki and ugali and all the good stuff and the goat. And I was initiated as a Maasai, but I helped the adults who had left school. I helped them learn to speak more English and help them with math, help them continue on with their studies. And I helped women learn skills. So people would send me money and I bought sewing machines and I taught them how to sew. I'd been sewing since I was 7. And so we had sort of a building with just a roof and kind of little pony walls, and they were all treadle machines. So I had to go back to Nairobi and I took Helen, that was her English name. I took Helen with me, and she didn't know how to cross the street with the red lights and green lights. She only went with the other people. When the other people went, I said, Helen, why are you going to cross the street now? She said, well, because that person is. I said, no, the light's red. She goes, well, what difference does that make? Anyway, and so Salaton Ndutu was the chief. And I think I said I was, I don't know did I say I was initiated as a Maasai warrior. That was quite the thing. And I used to tease the men sometime. There was these young men wanted to take me as their wife. And I would just say, no, I would like to take 4 of you as my husband, and I'll give you all your varying tasks. And they could never believe I would say such a thing. Anyway.
And you went to Masai Mara? Is that right?
Yes, I went to Masai Mara. I was in Narok. So if any of you know the little town of Narok, Narok, there might have been one stop sign in town, but I was outside of that on the savannah. So I would see the giraffes and the wildebeests, and we had an elephant come into the village. That was very scary. And I went to, some of the initiations with all the, slaughtering the goat, there was one I went to, they slaughtered a cow and all of that. And
Cheryl, I had a friend when I was driving a bus in Seattle, and his family lived in Kenya. And he said to me, I don't know that I can believe this. So can you and Samuel confirm this or not? He said they had a pet cobra. The cobra lived in their house and ate the mice, and that's how they kept the mice. I had no idea. It would scare the hell out of me if I got out of bed and there was a cobra next to me on the.
I don't know. We didn't have a cobra. I don't know about you, Samuel. You live there. I was I was in Africa for 5 months, but I did have what I called the man-eating rat in my hut, and it was about this big. And the first night on my bed, I was actually staying in the chief's hut. I was dreaming that there was a dog on the bed, and then I woke up and something was moving on the bed beside me. And I thought, there's a dog in my room. What's a dog doing in my room? And here it turned out to be this giant rat, and it ran on the floor, and I couldn't get my lantern lit. And so I took the chief's stick. He had this beaded stick, and I'm trying to hit this thing. And then it came up and hissed at me like that. And I screamed at the top of my lungs, and nobody came. And I was terrified. And then the rat, I heard it crawl up the wall and go out, and I got my mosquito net and tucked it in, and I hung it up somehow and tucked it in all around my bed and slept like that for the next 2 months. And then the next day the chief came and said, oh yeah, there's a big rat that lives in here. And Sinti, one of the warriors, said, well, how big is it? And he said, oh, it's about this big. So they got me a little kitten. And they fed it dried fish to live in the hut with me, and they fixed the hole. They fixed the hole where the rat was coming in. But I called it, and Cinti said, "Oh, that not good. They bite people."
By the way, we're talking with Cheryl Stelte, and when we come back from our halftime break, and Samuel, thank you for participating in the show. And the stories have just been wonderful. And we're going to take our halftime break, but then we've got to talk about your work and your book and all the things that you do to help people. And we might even, you do chakra readings and stuff like that as well. And so we should talk about that. And maybe you could help Rochelle with some of her migraines and some of those and nightmares and stuff like that. So stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back, and we're going to make Rochelle our local guinea pig, if that's all right with you, Miss.
Yes, that's fine. I'm in it for the win it. You know this.
We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Are you looking for your daily dose of inspiration? Stay connected to all your favorite shows, music, and news with the Brushwood Media Network app. From Positive Talk Radio to Greatest Vibes Unplugged and so many more uplifting voices around the world, everything you need is right in one place. It's easy to use, too. Always available and designed to keep you inspired 24 hours a day. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com and download the app, and you will always have Brushwood Media available on your smartphone. Download it now and make inspiration and music and conversation part of your everyday. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald and Rochelle. And by the way, Cheryl, you probably don't know this because I haven't told you this, but on the Brushwood Media Network, Rochelle and I do a music show now as well on Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern. And we play some of the music that predates Rochelle by like 30 years and stuff. I mean, for me, it's contemporary, but for her, it's like, oh yeah, this is really old stuff. But she loves old music and stuff. So we do that, and that's Monday through Friday on the Brushwood Media Network. And we're talking with Cheryl Stelte. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yay! I did it.
Good
And
job.
her website, and I'll screw this up. So, Rochelle, her website is.
Yes, visit her website, starofdivinelight.com. There is so much there to see.
And we appreciate having you here. You've written a couple of books. You work with chakras. You work with healing people. Describe how that process works, because it's just energy, right?
That's right. It's energy. And so I used to do it all in person. And then I started getting requests to help people online. And so I started doing that. And when I moved to the US, it started to just be all pretty much online, because the reason it works so well, it really makes no difference whatsoever, because we are all one. We're all of, you could say, part of the same grid. We are all an aspect of source, of the creator. Separation really is an illusion. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, I can work with you. So I have people that come to me, they're mostly feeling blocked in their lives, that they're just having a heck of a time moving forward. So I wrote my first book, Heal Your Neck Issues and Let Your Throat Chakra Shine, because all my clients seem to have throat chakra issues. And I noticed, I thought I had more throat chakra issues than anybody else. But what happens is our earlier wounding, especially the wounds in the lower chakras, the root chakra, all come up, and the throat chakra is like a bottleneck. It's the narrowest part of our body. And so the energy gets trapped there. And it's so much about speaking your truth, feeling seen and heard. But the ultimate level of the throat chakra is to express all that you truly are, a divine being here in form at the highest level, and why you are here. And then I started working with coaches and helping them attract clients like people were just finding me, and I had these other coaches saying, how are you doing that? And so I said, well, come and work with me. And then I wrote my client magnet book, The Coach's Guide to Attract Ideal Clients Through Spiritual Practices, Spiritual Awareness. And I think it's my biggest selling book, which kind of surprises me. But I have a book I wrote just less than a year ago, From Block to Powerful. That's my most recent book, which is, they're all workbooks. They're all full of all sorts of spiritual practices, how to really make them your own. But this one is sort of, I think of it as my legacy book, to really help you unlock that inner clarity and authentic power. Because I believe we are all powerful beyond what we can currently imagine. It's true.
So when you're working with people and doing the chakra work, do you give them tools and skills to take home so that they can find the awareness to it in the first place?
Yes, absolutely. I help every single person who wants to become their own energy worker, because it's all about the experience. You can go through and read a book. You can read one of my books, but if you don't do the practices, it's just mental information. You want the experience, whether that's through meditation, whether it's through shamanic practices, whether it's through healing with me. And it's through healing with me that your life will change, and you will likely find a way to integrate it into your work. I can't tell you how many people, especially coaches, but other people in business, or even mothers with their kids, the work that we do, they integrate it. They find a way to integrate it to help others in their own unique way, because it's the healing that leads to the empowerment. And they learn, and it's about finding the absolute truth of your being. I don't give anybody affirmations or mantras to do. I help them find their unique affirmations and mantras within their being. It's not my business to tell them go and do this mindset work, because it's that might be from me. I help them find the truth of their being, and it's through the healing and empowerment that they clear out the old subconscious beliefs and the new real ones come in, the truth, and they start to live differently. So it's all through meditation and the energy healings. And then I have a lot of other various spiritual practices, depending on which program you're in.
Very, very good. Kevin, do you have a question? Because I've got 3 in my mind and I need to pick one.
I want you, because this is important. Cheryl, I consider Rochelle's like in graduate school, and she is learning, and she is asking. You would not believe how many times what you said earlier happens a lot, which is nobody's ever asked me that before. And it's because she uses her intuition, and the universe provides. I did the same. This is what I taught her. I'd like to take credit for it, but I can't. The universe provides her with questions that are relevant to not necessarily even you or me, but for somebody in the audience who needs to hear what you're going to say. It's pretty remarkable, and so she's learning so much. But if you've got 3 questions, my dear, go for it. I want you to ask them all, baby.
Well, there's 2 that are kind of mixing together. Because when we're talking about chakras, the one thing that popped in my mind, Cheryl, was when you learn that your body also stores memories, not just your brain. That's where I started to come in with the chakra stuff. I've always seen auras. I'm very strong in mediumship, whether I like it or not. And my tuition is insane since I've been so grounded and so present. Because, like you said, those gratitude moments, I don't have to wake up and write them down. They happen throughout the day, and it stops me in my tracks. And I'm able to be in that moment and live through that every day. But focusing on these chakras and releasing these energies, sometimes you're not really even thinking about it. Like how you say you meditate, but it's not, you don't sit down on your little stool and light your candle and have your smell, and it's kind of just happens, all based off of your presentness and your breathing. And as I've worked through learning these chakras, and when they release that emotion, there's memories tied to that. And although it is extremely heavy to the point of feeling my heart hurting inside my body, there's something in my soul that is deeper than that, like physically, I don't feel like I should be able to survive going through this, because it's not even reliving it, but kind of accepting it so that it can go away is this huge process. And I think I've realized that a lot of people that are trying to work on that's exactly where they get stuck, because they think this is never going to end. I am going to keep working on this energy, and I'm going to release these chakras, and it's just going to be this never ending flow of things that won't stop coming up. Did you experience that? And what was it like getting through it?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. And I'll tell you, can I give you a tip?
Yeah, for sure.
Differently? Because what happens in the subconscious, and I didn't know this when I first started, in the subconscious, our wounds and trauma is stored primarily through the physical sensations. So you feel things in your body, you might feel pain, you might get sick, whatever it is, might be tingling, warmth, whatever it is, and emotions. Mm-hmm. It is not through linear memory.
Yeah.
All memories of trauma are fragmented. But what happens when we focus on the memory, our left brain, the right brain is the subconscious, the left brain is the linear thinking brain. Our left brain wants to fill in all the blanks. Not necessary. Absolutely not required. Just focus on the emotions and the physical sensations. The emotions are the deepest layer. So it kind of goes the most superficial layer are the fragmented memories.
Mhm.
The next layer is the physical sensations. The deepest layer are the emotions. And, it's proven that trauma is imprinted in the brain in this way through physical sensations and emotions, and any memories are fragmented. But whatever the trauma was, it's not so much about what happened. It's the lingering feeling of uncertainty throughout the rest of our lives that we're left with. So so try and stay out of the memory. You can recognize it, but always bring yourself into the emotion. Say, how did I feel? What was the emotion I could not fully feel at that time? And you allow yourself to feel it. And I remember doing this work years ago, and it was all I could do to take one more breath. I remember being stuck in this emotion of utter disgust, and I just wanted to jump out of my body. I had no memory with it. It was so horrific. And I would say to myself, just one more breath, and I'm bawling my eyes out. So you can cry on the exhale. So I would inhale, it'd be like this, a long inhale, then woo, then I'm crying on the exhale, and then another, and then I'd be just one more and inhale. Now, that's a way to do it, and it can be a real catalyst for change. That's more of a cathartic release. And modern psychology will often say, but you go too high up in the bell curve. If anyone's heard of the bell curve, when we have trauma or we upset, when you go to the top of the bell curve and you kind of lose it, it's hard to come back down and reintegrate easily. So there is a lot of theory out there and belief and practice that you only go so high in the bell curve so that you don't reach that. So I'm mixed. I was desperate for change. I would do anything because this was working for me. And so I stuck it out multiple times. I can't tell you how often. And then at times I would have to have a nap. I'd be like, I got to sleep. And I would sleep for 2 hours and feel like $1 million the next day. So it's sort of, how desperate are you is my question. If you're like, no, I'm ready to take it slow and more calm, then don't let yourself get too high in the bell curve. If it gets to be too difficult, this is what you do. You open your eyes and you find a spot in the room and you focus on it and you breathe. And you can say something like, I'm here, I'm present in the room, this is where I am, I feel my body. And you wait and it'll calm down. And then you go back in when you're ready and you work with the breath again. And if it goes up that high, again, you can do the same. But what I find with people that I've suggested, when they meditate and they're just so traumatized, especially older people, and it's just so much trauma over decades that they go into the top of that curve, that eventually they get the hang of it. And then they can go deeper and they don't have to do that anymore, that it all becomes manageable. So it can also be like your system can only handle so much in the beginning. Like I've had meditations where I'm bouncing around. It's way too much energy for my physical system. But you don't, it's not necessarily healthy, but regardless, you will get the hang of it and your capacity increases. So as a practitioner, I've been doing this almost 32 years. So my capacity, there's nothing anybody can come to with me anymore that I can't hold them in, and just like you, my intuition, I know exactly how to support them and move through it. So it's not so difficult and I don't get that sort of response anymore. So I hope that was helpful.
Yeah. No, that was perfect, because the key thing that you said, Kevin, we can still take the break if you want to. I know we just moved past it. I'm so sorry.
No, we're just going to kill it. We're good.
Okay. But yeah, Cheryl, when you mentioned that I've never really gone through a state of being like that most people experience, but it was the realization of I have control. Like I feel like I'm out of control, but I'm fully in control. I know what I'm feeling. I can be thankful for feeling those things. I can it was I almost got like irritated at myself while I was crying, just like growling and grabbing my steering wheel because I realized like I have full control of how this affects me right now. I can let myself feel it. That was a big thing for, starters. But it was also, what am I going to do now? Usually it would be those moments that it would happen and I would, it would take us down, and it does. You just want to curl up and you want to hide, and everything just becomes so much. But when you realize that it doesn't have to be that way either, that you can go through those things and continue to grow, continue to process, continue to learn. And like Kevin will tell you, I missed 3 days last week. I mentally, emotionally felt so unstable just by everything being so heavy, and I did sleep. That's all I needed. I just needed to go to sleep, not think about it, not feel it, not analyze it, not fix it. And I also came to a state of, maybe sometimes we over process what we think we need to release, or we're trying to, well, this affects me that way and I need to figure out exactly why. And it's we play this push and pull game with ourselves. But there's a key word that I mention a lot lately, and I want to say this to you because I want your perspective. But when I fully surrendered, I gained full control. And even though it sounds like it makes absolutely no sense and it's backwards, it makes sense, right?
It totally makes sense, because when we fully surrender, we're surrendering to the divine. We are no longer on our own.
Mhm.
Humans, we are so conditioned that we have to be the ones in charge, that we have to be the ones in control, that we're doing it on our own, or we might have the help of another human. But true surrender is allowing yourself to be either in, whether it's unity consciousness, or it can be done for you. I can't tell you how many healings I had done where I just had spiritual beings working on me. I just surrendered. Okay, here they come in, and I'm like, wow, all right, thank you. That's amazing.
It's relieving. Yeah, you take the wheels.
I gotta ask you, because years ago when I made the conscious decision, I had the opportunity. I was working with a spiritual group, and I had the opportunity to meet some of my spirit guides. And then for me, that taught me that they were absolutely real, and it wasn't a matter of conjecture. And maybe they are, maybe they're not. They're absolutely real. And so when I said to them, okay, I'm going to leave it to you guys. You guys tell me what I do next. And then things magically started to just line up chapter and verse to get me to where I am now. And it was all because it was like I had nothing to do with it. It was like they were saying, "Oh, finally, the dumb son of a gun is finally admitted, and he's going to let us do our work." And so they went to work to do it all, and everything lined up just perfectly. And it continues to do that to this day. And so, and I never called it surrender, because it wasn't, for me, it wasn't about surrendering and letting go. It was about asking for their guidance and giving them permission to do what I had always wanted them to do, and was actually contracted to do with them before I was even born, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
Totally.
Cheryl. And I have to tell you too, because me and Kevin doing this work, I can't tell you the amount of times where I've called him randomly and I'm like, Kevin, it makes sense. I understand now everything you were saying. Oh my God, like this is real. It's possible. And it's right in front of my face. Do you have people that come to you and they're just so excited or so thankful because everything that they learned in a split second clicked and things were just so much better in life? Like,
Yes.
what's that like for you?
Well, like, I get that. I've also gotten in the last couple of months, some women think I'm working on their husbands. And I say, no, I'm not. What are you doing to my husband? You're doing something, aren't you? Because he's really different. And I'm not working on their husbands. What's happening is they have such drastic change that the husband can no longer stay the same. And so what I often will see, I started there. Was joking with a group of the women I work with, and it's yeah, your marriage is either going to improve or you're going to be filing for divorce if you come and work with me. It's going to go one way or the other. But it's more what I get, not so much what's making sense. Yes, I do get that, but they're blown away with things they say and blown away with their own behavior. I can't believe I did this. And it just happened so easily. I would have never done that before. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. And that's sort of the reports that I get.
That's awesome.
And Cheryl, I do have to tell you, because when I was started to do the radio show and was meeting people like Neil Donald Walsh and Gary Zukav and was really invested in their work and stuff, I began to change. And so this was one of those deals where my wife refused to change. And so it now became impossible for us to coexist at the same level. So what did she do? She found somebody who resonated with her at the lower level of where she was at. And that's how the affair happened. That's how the marriage ended. And then she found out that he had issues as well. So, but it was because she didn't want to go and raise her vibration. She didn't understand any of that. And so that's a natural thing. And that does happen to people, doesn't it?
It happens all the time. But boy, when the other party just naturally accepts it, when they're doing their own work, it is magic.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing what can happen. But then even if they part ways, I have one of my clients let me know she's actually filed for divorce, but she's meeting all these people, and all her relationships are different, and she has way more relationships than she used to have. So your life is going to shift, because I love that you bring up vibration, because that is essentially what happens. We continue to raise our vibration. It's sort of like this. We're vibrating at a certain level. But if you look at the chakra work, and I do readings, I mean, I get a lot of stuff. It's not just chakras, but when I see the chakras, and so any chakra blocks look like black. It's not moving. There's no flow. And the rest of the chakras all light. There's a lot of flow. And so what happens as we clear and release these blocks, you become more light. You become more light, which raises your vibration. And then what you attract changes, and it also depends what level of realization you're going through at the moment, because there are the surrender steps and there's the steps of mastery where you're meant to be doing. So it all kind of becomes very complex, but it was perfect when you were introduced to your guides. That was a surrender step for you to open up and allow them in and to receive that information. It was so timely.
And we've only got a minute, but I needed to get this question in. And first of all, is it your birthday?
No, it was my birthday last week.
Oh, well, that's close enough. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'll keep going with my birthday.
As you get all month.
And the question from my team here is, what is the connection between purpose and personal fulfillment? They're one and the same, aren't they? Or are they different?
You can have personal fulfillment in a lot of areas, and it can be from things that you do, but purpose is more a way of being. We start out by it being things that we do, and it doesn't have to be your career, but purpose is a way of being. It's really being in your love and being in your light, being present and not being dragged down by fear by worry, by that lower vibration. And that is more purpose. And you bring that to everyone, every situation, everything you do, everything you say, and you radiate that. So to me, they're a little different.
Beautiful.
Cheryl, I've got bad news for you. You're going to have to come back because we've
I
run out
would love to.
Yes.
we've run out of time, and we've got so much more to talk to you about. And but Rochelle, if somebody wants to reach her, how do they do it?
Yes, go reach Cheryl at her website and get curious with some of the stuff in yourself and heal. starofdivinelight.com. And as Kevin said, we have to have you back, Cheryl. It's been truly an honor. Thank you so much for spending this time with us.
I would love that. It would truly be an honor. Thank you both.
The gift that you give is that the experiences that you've had in your life have led you to become the person that you are today, which is going to then lead to the person that you're going to be tomorrow. I feel it pisses me off so badly that Rochelle is so young because she's learning so much, and in 40 years she's going to be just like you. I guarantee it.
I think a lot sooner than that.
But again, thank you very much. And your website again is
starofdivinelight.com.
And go there. She's got several books, and we need to have you back so you can talk about those. And you honor us with your presence, really. Rochelle, do you agree?
Yep, 100%. Thank you for being able to end such a powerful Monday with us and lead us into the week. And everybody join us back tomorrow because there's more goodness to come.
Thank you so much. You're both great blessings in the world.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.